All right. Welcome back to another episode. It's me, Yin, aka Yin Nefer, and I got some things to say, so we're just gonna get right into it. So I know it's been a while since I've been here, and I thought about the last time I was in a cycle of really producing content and sharing my thoughts, or rather my reflections and my questions with you all. Um, Before this fifth iteration, it was about 4 years ago, right before we went into an election. And here I am again, with this fifth iteration, but this would be like post, this is like the second half of the season of this first rendition of the fifth iteration podcast, excuse me. So it hasn't been too long since I did an episode compared to the other hiatuses that I've gone on. So hopefully, y'all aren't mad at me or anything. I'm getting better. And also with that is an acceptance that, you know, consistency looks different for all of us. And then also life is happening and there's lessons in that. And so it always makes it more potent for me, I think, and more meaningful when I can come back with some perspective because it's been some time. I've had some time to learn some more things, live, let some things manifest, and then I come back with even more perspective and things that I say, to me at least, carry more weight. So I want to start with the last series of podcasts that I did, and some interesting things happened. Actually, I was speaking to a friend about those, but on basically my last episode, I was speaking about a lot of different things, but I was posing the question to myself and thus to you all was, do we need to be more involved in politics? And can we be Black? Can we be spiritual and political all at the same time? And so I went on this inquiry and I went on this sort of mind journey into influence and what institutes influence, what gives us influence in a particular realm. Does our participation and involvement give us that influence in that realm? And so when it comes to the political and the global level that we live in, I wanted to know, like, do we need to be involved? And do we need to be more involved? Do we need to be more strategic? Since then, I've also added in other perspectives when it comes to being spiritual. And if you consider yourself active spiritually or spiritually aware, where do you fall in your participation and involvement on the political realm? And the more I learn about the origins of our government and the contracts, the spiritual contracts that were created, it makes me take a step back. It does. And we'll have to talk about that one episode, but I don't want to go down that route right now. But what I do want to bring up in regards to the most recent episode was the fact that I brought up Jasmine Crockett and Terrence Howard in that episode. And little did I know, both of them went viral in the months to come. Both of them. Um, so if you did not listen to those episodes, because you know that Jasmine Crockett is the beach blonde, bad built, butch bodied author. That's Jasmine Crockett. And Terrence Howard went viral for his initial interview. Um, I can't even remember where his initial interview was, but then he came back and did a subsequent one with Joe Rogan, where he got to go a little bit more in depth. But anyways, that was a lot of excuse me, that was a lot of controversy around him in that episode because he ruffled a lot of people's feathers. And that's a whole nother episode. We're not going to get into Terrence Howard. I got into some pretty heated debates over this subject, and it seemed to offend people. I wonder why. Why did that offend so many people? And why did so many people feel it necessary to basically support or speak against him? You had to fall on one side or the other. But anyways, that's another day. Okay, we're not going there. But I do want to bring up the fact I thought it was interesting after the fact that I spoke about both of them in that episode, and in the months to come, they went viral. I also wanted to give another update about the Alabama mayor that I brought up in that same episode. There is an update recently, and this is good news. New Bern, Alabama will hold its first election since 1965. And this is a headline that I'm reading online. Can you believe that? Well, I'm glad that some attention and some justice, hopefully justice will prevail there, and they will get what they're owed. May the scales be balanced. So I don't know. Maybe it's the power of our attention. Maybe the power of our attention and our awareness alone is what brings us power and solutions, because we are operating, I choose to believe, inside an infinitely intelligent universe that can solve its own problems because it's much more intelligent than us. We are just part of it, and we are its creation at the same time. So I don't know. We're gonna try it again. So let's see what's gonna come up in this episode and what I have to say here. So that was my little introduction. Now let's get into it. In this episode, I intend to say all that I can say. I am in the midst of a transition, and as I was looking through my notebooks over the past at least 10 years, okay, 10 years would be 2014. Yeah, so yeah, I probably have 10 years of notebooks, thoughts, ideas, businesses, all of these websites of mine that you guys have seen me do over the years, all of the visions that I had for each of those are in these notebooks around here. And I'm basically tuning into like the core message or the core messages that I've been attempting to speak through all of these endeavors. And so I want to sum it up in today's episode. And the first thing that I want to talk about is energy in general. And then the methods in which we primarily exchange energy on this realm, because when we look at existence, and if we break down existence into its simplest form, that means we're talking about energy in different forms, in matter, in different states. But let's just back up and talk about energy, because energy um is at the core of matter. And maybe we need to look at Einstein's formula. And since this just came into mind, let me pull it up, because this is what I just saw. Because we need to make it make sense. We need to make it make sense. So Einstein, he has a formula that puts energy and matter into the same, that equates or shows us the relationship between energy and matter, which is phenomenal. So his equation is E equals mc squared, which energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. So that means that energy is equal to matter times, I'm sorry, that's not matter, that's mass. Oh, well, mass is matter. Okay. Mass, matter. We'll have to investigate that, because I'm seeing that mass and matter are interchangeable because they're different forms of the same thing. All right, so when we take mass and we multiply it by the speed of light squared, we get energy. All right, so if we think about existence and all that existence, because what we see around us, what we actually see with our eyes is matter, right? We know there's physical matter, right? Matter, physical. And it's been a long time since I took science, but let me look up matter in the different forms. Solids, liquids, gases. Okay, yeah, that's matter. Those are the great states of matter. So immediately, the first things that we see with our visible eyes are physical solid matter. But there's also liquid and gas matter, because we see rain when it falls and we smell gas when it's passed. Okay, excuse me. But no, when you're filling your car up with gas, you can smell it. So it exists even though we can't see it with our eyes. So this is matter. So all matter multiplied by the speed of light squared gives us energy. All right. So now let's talk about the other side of that equation again, energy. So everything that exists is energy at its core and in its simplest form. It's energy, right? Matter, we know matter is made up of atoms, and atoms have different arrangements with molecules to make different substances and different elements on the periodic table, right? So the periodic table houses all of the elements, all of the known elements at least, and these are different molecules, and molecules are just arrangements of atoms. And when they arrange themselves in different ways, it forms different elements. And then when you put these elements together, when you start mixing them and stuff like this is how we come up with different materials. All right. So even the man-made ones, from plastic to rubber to the natural occurring things like wood, those have a certain chemical makeup, right? A chemical structure. And by that, I mean the arrangement of the atoms and molecules and stuff like that, right? So all we have to do is rearrange atoms to get different results, right? And then that gives us the matter that we see. And again, that is just energy, because matter multiplied by the speed of light squared gives us energy. right? So if you could take matter and somehow multiply it to the speed of light, maybe move it at the speed of light squared, you can transform it to energy and you can move it from place to place. I don't know. Maybe this is how they get TVs to work. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but right now I'm just using my own logic, my own understandings to make some sense of things. And so let's talk about energy. But let's talk about um, physical energy. We're going to equate that to money. All right. So when we have money, we can go and exchange money for objects, right? So we can sit and we can give some time at our jobs over a couple of weeks and we earn a paycheck. We take that paycheck and we get money. So basically we took our time and we converted it into, we took our energy first. We have our energy. We gave our energy for a set period of time of our time and for a set amount of time to a company or an entity doing something. And in exchange for that, they gave us money, right, in the form of our paycheck that we can then go take and buy things that we want and need. So that is how we exchange for money, exchange energy for money, or use our energy money. Now, money is a currency. I'm not even going to go there. Okay, so welcome back. And just took a sip of water. We're going to dive right into the topics that I want to discuss. I want to talk about energy, and I want to talk about the ways in which we primarily exchange energy, and that is with sex and money. We exchange our energies when we have sex with other people, and we exchange money all the time. We exchange money for other money, more money. We also exchange money for objects. Excuse me. And these money and sex are what make the world go round, right? Money and sex makes the world go round. Besides gravity and the sun, right? Aside from that, us that live on the actual planet, what helps us move around and get around, what keeps life going is sex. And what keeps us living is the ability to be able to sustain ourselves, and that is through the use of money. And so these are also like the subject of most people's issues and problems have to do with money and sex. Either they're most of the time the complaint is you don't have enough of it, right? You don't have enough, folks don't have enough money, or they're not having the sex that they want to have, or they don't have the love and relationship that they want, which is basically associated with the sex that they want to have, right? So, what I've learned in my short time here and what has been revealed to me through reflection and my own subconscious teaching me, showing me my blind spots. The most money I've made in life, or when I was able to up level the money that I had the ability to earn, was when, first of all, I was abstinent. And the time periods in my life when I was not, or when I was losing money or not doing the best with my money, were the times in which I was exchanging my physical energy, aka sex, with the wrong person. Now, this is going to look different for men than it will be for women, because women have a certain piece. Let's say that there's one puzzle piece right? That is like the key. The woman has a particular part of that, has a particular puzzle piece. The man has a different one. When they come together is when you get the key. Um Now, those two pieces have a mechanism that works on their own. Okay. But definitely when you bring those two together, it can be a break, a make or break type situation. So if you are in a situation right now where your money is not right, if your money is not right, the first place that you need to look energetically speaking, which is to me metaphysical, which is spiritual, is who you're sleeping with. You need to check yourself before you continue to wreck yourself. And who they may or may not be sleeping with as well. So that's the number one thing you want to eliminate right there, is that you know what's happening. And if you guys are faithful to each other, great. But that's the number one thing you need to eliminate, right? So by process of elimination, we're going to start clearing out the problem. Number one, make sure they're not being deceitful and sleeping with someone else. Now, number two, you have to examine the spiritual state of the person that you're with, the karmic state of the person that you're exchanging energy with, and the contract or the arrangements in which you two have decided to come together and be sexual with one another. You need to arrange those, you need to examine those, and you need to make sure that they're on the up and up. Now, I'm using everyday language, at least I hope I am, and just to keep this simple, okay? Make sure your sexual engagements are on the up and up. If they're not, expect to lose money. Right? If you're a woman, expect to lose money. If you're a man, you may be okay now, but your bill is going to come due. Okay? You will have to pay the debt. You may reap the benefits in the moment of sleeping with that woman under the circumstances and the shady arrangements that you have. Now, however, you're only exaggerating and creating a debt and a bill for yourself that will come due at some point soon. And this is what I know from observation and looking at life and looking at people, looking at situations and my own experiences. Now, I watched something interesting on the internet recently, yesterday, with Joshua Mapanga, I believe is his name. There is a little reel on the internet now. I think if you go to Shaka Bar's live IG, you will see this little snippet that I'm talking about. But I've never heard someone explain it the way that he did, but it makes sense. So he talks about the womb of the woman, the entrance to the womb of the woman, which is her vagina, being the collective of her mother's family, her mother's family, her father's family coming together, right? That is the entrance to her womb. And he says that it could be a womb or a tomb. It could bring life and it can bring death upon entrance. And that contracts and arrangements have to be basically in harmony or in serenity, before entering or upon entering. Otherwise, you're creating um, death, a tomb, okay, or decay, or, you know, the shutdown of energy, not a creation of energy, right? So, abundance, the creation of energy would be moving towards life. The opposite would be decay, which is moving towards death. Um, so that's the first thing I just want to say in a nutshell, right? There's more to it. I'm sure there's a more eloquent way to explain all of that, but that is sacred energy, folks. Sacredly sexy. When I work with folks in that, the first question I ask is, are you sexually involved? Folks have got to get that in order if you want your money right. That's what I believe anyways. You want your money right, you gotta get your sex right. You want it to last, you gotta be on the up and up. Period. All right, moving on. The other thing that I want to talk about is what I see when it comes to what's happening collectively. I think that as a collective, we are activated in certain areas. I'm going to use the chakras as a framework for this. I think that at the roots, the sacral and the solar, most people are online. But even though they're online, their energy centers may be moving the opposite direction, maybe off balance, maybe blocked, things like that. But for the most part, those bottom three collectively, everyone is at least online. I think that a lot of us, when it comes to the heart, there is a great number of us as well that it is online there, but there's a lot of healing to do. So there's a lot of blockage when it comes to the heart chakra. People are also actively shutting down their heart. They're actively choosing not to be involved, not to live from their heart. This is why we see a lot of the, you know, just sex-based relationships or get out of your feelings. How this negative rhetoric around catching feelings. Excuse me. That is becoming rampant. Like when I was growing up, people wanted to be in love. We would ask each other, do you like me? Circle yes or no. Like there was some value. People liked each other, and it was okay to be in love, But now it's like people literally run the opposite direction. And I think that that's a problem. It is, I think it's a problem. I'm sure most of you know it's a problem. Our heart is the gateway between the lower and the higher realms. The heart is what connects them. If you want to get to the higher realms, you have to go through the heart. Your heart has to be online. You have to free your heart. You have to let your heart sing, which we'll get into that when we talk about the throat activation. But what I'm noticing is that there's a shutdown at the heart purposely. There's an aversion that is sending people in the opposite direction and keeping them just on the lower. Maybe they get to the solar, but a lot of people you see, they don't have discipline or willpower, which is the third center, the solar plexus realm. You see that on a large scale, we're lacking that. That's why you see so many succumb to things like gluttony, being overweight or obese, not having any self-control over their choices, over different temptations, whether it be food, sex, or whatever other vices um folks may have. People are weak, and that comes from not having a strong, active solar plexus chakra. So, folks are relegated to the first or second, maybe. And then there are issues with those, but I won't go into the and this is me giving that those are open and clear and moving in the right direction. But in a lot of times those are open, but they're not moving in the right direction. People have instability, they're not grounded, or they are acting in living in fear, living in guilt, living in shame, living in the shadows. Their choices are based on that. When you make your choices based on fear, and I'm not talking about the instances in which we just want to be wise. I'm not talking about that. I mean, choices like have to do with you just choosing to live in fear and live in the shadow of yourself. That's, that's a backwards route. It's moving in the opposite direction. So I'll probably have to go into a talk about that later, but I did a lot of this work with Your Wellness is Wealth with Reiki when I put emphasis on the chakras. And so you can find more of that at yourwellnessiswealth.com. Okay. But I want to move up, and let's just say that, hey, your root, your sacral, your solar aspects are online and clear, and for the most part, moving in the direction that they need to, right? And you've got to bring your heart into it. You got to get in touch with your heart's desires, your heart's longings, your heart's yearnings. This is where the truth lives. See, in order to speak your truth from the throat, in order to express yourself, to be your authentic self, all of that expression comes from the throat chakra, that realm. However, in order to do that, the heart has to be alive. It has to be activated. The truth lives in the heart. There are so many people that have gotten comfortable living lies. There's so many people that have gotten comfortable living lies to the point that they have deceived themselves. We deceive ourselves. I've deceived myself. I have to dig deep. We all have to do work and dig deep. You have to look at what's under the surface to get to the truth and to the deeper aspects, the deeper meanings, the deeper importances to you. You have to ask yourself, you got to spend time with yourself, and you got to ask yourself, why do I do this? Why do I not do that when I know I should? Why do I continue to hide? Or why don't I go after that thing that I really want? asking yourself these types of questions will not only help you get to the bottom of what's in your heart, but it will help you get to the bottom of your fear, the bottom of your guilt, and the bottom of your shame, which are all the shadow aspects of the lower three realms or chakras, centers. Asking yourself these types of questions. You got to be honest with yourself to begin with. But the thing, what I think is the enemy here is the ego, because our ego, it protects us. It keeps us strong. It keeps us going. So it will have you, it'll give you the pride you need to keep going right through some bullshit, you know? Because sometimes you might find yourself in the middle of some bullshit that you got to get through, and pride is the only thing that could get you through it. But you've got to realize when you have walked through the bullshit enough that you could actually step to the left or the right onto solid ground. And actually, I don't need to hold on to this pride about this situation any longer. So I don't need to stay in this bullshit. I can actually just step out onto the solid ground. So the ego can get in the way of a lot. The ego will have you sitting in a wrong decision for too long. Sometimes we make decisions, we don't know that they were the wrong decisions for us. And because you want to save face, whenever you try to save face, that's ego. That's an ego moment. Saving face is all about the ego. Because saving face is literally just saving face. It is not you being honest with yourself or being honest with being, having humility where you can be open and honest. Again, open and honest has to do with the truth about where you are in that moment. So these are the enemies. And so the way to get to the authentic being and the more of the truth and less self-deception, because wherever we self-deceive, you can expect betrayal. You can expect someone to be lying to you or betraying you or deceiving you because you're already doing it to yourself. And that person is just in alignment with the life or the identity or the scenarios that you've already created around that self-deception. They're just in there with you. So until you acknowledge the self-deception, then and only then can someone who had the possibility to betray you or deceive you, you're no longer a match for them. They have no place in your life at that point. So as you move through these different aspects, you begin to activate the throat. I'm calling it the throat, right? Because that's what it's called. But when I call it the throat, when I say the throat, I'm talking about this center that represents your authentic being, your self-expression, how you show up in the world. And what I've noticed is it's very clear, at least to me, when someone is not activated in this way, because they have no self-awareness usually. And someone on that level is probably not on at the heart, because when you're on at the heart, at least you can feel that, and they're going to at least be it. Even if they don't say it, They're going to show you with their actions. They're going to live it. You'll be able to see it through their expressions, not just in what they say. So I feel like what we're being called and challenged to do is to get our hearts and our self-expression, which by that I mean our throat, activated, fully activated and online. Because the heart is, like I said, the gateway to the higher realms, or the higher chakras. In order for you to be able to perceive and have, discernment, which comes through okay, which most people call it your third eye, right? We learned it as your first eye, is the eye inside your mind that allows you to see from inside your mind. These are two physical eyes, but there's an eye inside your head. In order to get there, you need an activation of the heart and the throat. So, for those that are climbing, for those that are toiling, for those that are desiring to get there, get disciplined. How do you get disciplined? You get disciplined by being strong. How do you get strong? You have to practice. You have to lift the weight. The first time you try, you might not be able to lift it, right? You're going to drop it. The next time you try, you might be able to lift it and hold it for 5 seconds. And then that's it. But then the next time you try, you're going to be able to hold it for 10 seconds. And that's how you continue to build your strength. So when it comes to vices and our weaknesses, whether it be food, whether it be some sort of substance or drug, whether it be sex, whether it be a person, a particular person with the sex, not sex in general, but it's a particular person. You know what I'm talking about. You have to start where you are and you keep going, and you're going to fail. But that doesn't mean that you stop. You just do it again. And it doesn't matter how many times you fail, as long as after you fail, you do it again. Period. You cannot be scared. You may not know the outcome at the time that you begin, but you do it anyway. And then you will find yourself building your strength and your willpower. And before you know it, you have the courage to speak your heart. You have the courage to take one step forward towards your heart's longings, yearnings, desires, and how you're being led. Because what's placed in your heart is so sacred. What's placed in your heart is very sacred. And you must honor that, because that's how we're led. So that is the second thing, heart and chakra activation. That's very important. Again, to find more work there, for those that want to do work in that realm, go to yourwellnessiswealth.com. And the next thing, let's see how long have I been talking? All right, I'm already at 45 minutes. So this might be split up into two episodes if I can't get the next topics in the next 15 minutes. So the next topic I want to talk about is health and wellness. Now, when I first came on the scene, however many years ago that was, that's what I was talking about. Health and wellness, being healthy, being well, not just in the physical body, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because because those things are connected. And so in my teachings, I would explain how all of these bodies are connected: the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual, etheric bodies were all connected. But what I've come to notice, which is the original reason why I even chose the phrase "your wellness is wealth," is that what is necessary for wellness is also what's necessary for wealth, quote, wealth or abundance. Wealth in its most physical form is wealth like money, but wealth in its less physical forms really just refer to abundance, right? Wealth in energy, wealth in vitality, wealth in willpower, wealth in courage. You have an abundance of these things to help you go out and get whatever it is that you need or want. But what is necessary for both of those is an innate. There is an innate self-worth that is at the bottom of that. That is what things have taught me, that's what I've learned. And when we see people who suffer, is because they have not yet equated the appropriate value to themselves fully. They have not learned that they have an innate worth. You're worth it. You are worth the best. You are worth quality. You are worth your body needs nutrients and vitamins. And we've got to value our bodies. But so many of us have not learned how to value ourselves in that way. And therefore, because we have not equated a value to ourselves, and yet others have, they have so much gone as far as assigning a number, a monetary price to how much an hour of your time is, and decided to offer you that much in pay. And sometimes without thinking, we accept that. We accept that as being enough. So we have to take time to reflect upon how much our life force energy, how much our time is worth to us. Because ultimately, only we can determine that. Only we can determine that for ourselves. You get to decide how much you're worth. What's worth it to you? Okay. What's worth it? And you have to think in terms bigger than money, because some things are worth more than money. In some instances, your time. When you think about taking a day off, this is how I used to decide sometimes. If I took a day off work, how much money may I lose? Right? And I would compare that to what I would gain from the day off. On some days, it might just be a peace of mind, right? On other days, it might be a memory that would last forever, right? Like when my first day of school back as a teacher was the first day of school back for my kindergartner and my first grader. And I had to decide, do I want to ask my principal, hey, I can't be here on the first day of school because my kindergartner and my first grader have school. They have their first day of school. And it's important to me as their mother that I take them to school on their first day, that I show up for them on their first day, that I'm able to look their teacher in the face on their first day and to say, hey, I'm here. These are my children. I value them. I love them, and you better do the same. Versus at that time, maybe the $150 or $200 that I might, not $200, but $100 and something dollars that I might lose that day. But in that case, I really could get a substitute, so I wouldn't lose the money. But just the uncomfortable conversation that I would have to have with my principal. So it cost me an uncomfortable conversation with my principal, but it was worth it because money, whether I was going to get it or not, still wasn't worth more than that memory that I would get, that my children would have, and the precedent that I would put in place with those teachers, showing them that, hey, I'm here for my children. I'm their mother. I show up for them. I'm going to be here. Expect to see me. I love my children, and so therefore you need to love them as well. So this is how you got to go at things. Yes, people are going to put a price, a monetary price on everything, but what you've got to do is ask yourself, what's it worth? What is the $75 that you might make in your job on that day? Is it going to be worth it down the line 3 months from now when, you know, because you didn't get your peace of mind that you needed that day, things began to catapult and a molehill becomes a mountain, or the snowball effect that may happen because you didn't do this one thing. So you have to take the little steps and make the small decisions along the way. You have to count the cost of things and the toll that it will take. And you have to put value in the places that it needs to go and take value away where it does not need to go, so that you grow the things that you actually intend on growing for yourself, for your health, for your wealth, for your legacy, for your family, your children. So today, when you're making decisions about what you're going to eat or how you're going to spend your time, or if you're going to make that call or send that text message, you count the cost. This is also how you build your solar plexus, or your willpower, your will, your center of strength, your inner sun, is by little steps and little decisions and choices that you make in each and every moment, each day, that send you in the direction that you want to go in. So again, that is all yourwellnessiswealth.com. I've got available for abundance, I believe, class there on that. But my basic health classes, which one of them I'm just going to be making donation only. Hey, You want to get healthy? I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I've got a yoga certification and I've got a diabetes prevention training. So this is not professional advice by any means, but just from the little bit that I do know, I've shown you what I've done to change my health around because I was dealing with some pretty serious health issues. Um, how in 2007. So I don't know how many years ago that was now, but let me do the math. That was 17 years ago. So, and how I've helped people lose weight and basically lower their risk for diabetes. All right, so we're 56 minutes in. If you made it this far, leave a comment or something. Say, I made it to 56 minutes. I appreciate you. Share this with somebody or however you're inspired, transform it into your own work. Okay, channel it into your own work to whatever it is that you do or are doing already. Take it the next level. And the last few things that I wanted to talk about is the reason why we do, the reason why we cultivate, why we discipline, self-discipline, why we want to become self-aware, and all of these other areas that I've mentioned on this um, episode is to actually ignite and walk in the divine aspect of our human nature. Some people call it gifts. And I know that that's the common language for it, but I'm challenging that because I really see it as just the aspects of who we are as humans that are not activated until we get online in these other areas. You can look at them as lower three chakras versus higher chakras. But there's certain powers or gifts or abilities that I feel like the creator has embedded just in our structure, in our brains, in the way that our bodies work with our brains, and the way that we're connected to others, and the way that we can become aware of that is just innately within our bodies. But because of they and them and the system, those things aren't activated because there's an active there's resistance that wants to suppress those things. They want to suppress those things. But you can activate those things. You can get online just by using the manual. There was a manual left here for our bodies and how they work. All we have to do is go out, walk out into nature and eat God's food. What was left here, what grows from the earth. So that's all we got to do. And guess what? All the foods and fruits and vegetables that grow from the earth look like a particular organ or body part. That's how you know what to eat for what. Because they look like the foods actually look like what they're good for and what they support. Isn't that amazing? How simple is that? It's like foolproof. Literally, it is. So don't make it hard. Don't make it any more harder than what it needs to be. And then the last thing I want to say has to do with the power of a tear when we cry. I thought about this as I sat down to record this message, and I had a moment thinking about something and it brought tears to my eyes, and then it came to me. I took a thought. First of all, where did the thought come from, right? The thought could have came from a higher place down through my crown chakra, right? At this moment, I don't recall what it was. It came from outside of me. and it turned into a thought or thoughts. Those thoughts turned into feelings in my body. And that in turn produced something happened, some sort of transformation happened within my body, and it produced water that comes from my eyes. That in and of itself is something coming into physical manifestation that had the origin. I don't know where the origin is. It came from somewhere else. But it started with a thought within my body that changed into feelings that then somehow through some sort of chemical reaction in my body produced tears that want to run from my eyes. Water, the element of water. That is, I believe that's alchemy. It might take, it might be alchemy. It's a process of transmutation and transformation. We have that power within us. So just sit with that. Sit with that. Sit with that. And this is all that I can say. This is all that I can say. Check me out if you're ready. YourWellnessIsWealth.com, SacredlySexy.com, YinYangYoga.com. And you will see a subsequent episode where I've done an interview with the good brother, Professor Akil Parker, who is a math professor who is doing a wonderful thing on the internet. You guys know that I'm also a math teacher. And more recently, I began to call myself my aunt teacher. But I'm connecting math because mathematics, the word mathematics actually comes from my aunt. Math comes from my aunt. So if you visit me at my mathematics, you will learn more about that. But that will just be mathematics with 2 A's, my mathematics. You can visit me at myauthematics.com and see what I'm doing over there. But guys, we're bringing these things together. There has been a separation of the metaphysical from the physical, of the science from the spirit, all of that. But there is an effort to bring things back into one and into wholeness, and I'm a part of that. And I would like for you to get on board and learn more and walk the journey with us. And you can learn more at myauthematics.com. But stay tuned and tune into this episode with Brother Akil Parker. We're talking about math because, math, guys. I know it's a question. You're going to have to listen to the episode to see, what does math have to do with any of this? That'll be the name of the next episode. Until next time, you all, serenity, grace, love, and abundance.